with information from Donald Trump. He tweeted yesterday, "The big question that needs to be answered is whether President Xi of China will mention the tremendous amount of support that the United States of America gave China to help it secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader." He means Japan. Many Americans died in China's pursuit of victory and glory. I hope they are rightfully honored and remembered for their bravery and sacrifice. May President Xi and the wonderful people of China have a great and lasting day of celebration. Please also send my warmest regards to Putin and Kim Jong-un, since you have conspired against the United States of America. President Donald J. Trump. So basically, what is Trump doing here with Xi from China and Putin, the KGB man? He's trolling them, that's what. In other words, he's sarcastically saying that they've joined forces to fight against the United States of America. And here it should be said that despite all those Chinese parades and the fact that a bunch of countries from the former Soviet Union showed up, plus India joined in, I think this is just a temporary situation because Trump will deal with India, I'm sure, within a month. This just revealed their true face even more. In other words, all the terrorists of the world have united against whom? Against civilization. And at the moment, Trump is arguing that they have gathered against the United States of America. That's how it turns out, because it is in principle, the idea of the socialists and communists was different. Their plan was that now Harris, the stool as they call her, would come to power. And accordingly, China would expand even more inside the United States, further fueling the Democrats, communists, and socialists who are already there, and would ultimately turn the system into a one-party system, after which China could take over America with bare hands. But that didn't happen because the American people have had so much from the socialists over the past decades that, of course, they're fed up with it. And thank God Trump won. Despite the fraud, despite the fact that they wanted to put him in jail, wanted to destroy him, he still took power and is now successfully handling things here inside America as well as around the world. The fact that at this point Putin has sided with China has once again shown Trump that a KGB agent and a communist are one and the same. There is no difference between them. So, Anatoly, hi. Arkady Mosklenko. Anatoly, yes, greetings to everyone. So, as of today, what we have is this alliance of terrorists who are showing off thousands of soldiers marching. This is what communists love. They love it when lots and lots of tin soldiers take part in a parade. But nowadays, new technologies no longer depend on the number of people. In other words, war itself looks completely different now. The war in Ukraine has shown that now, in principle, even the front lines look completely different. And yet China is once again demonstrating these Soviet-style approaches. But Trump understands this absolutely clearly, and as we've discussed, his intention is to create a unipolar conservative world. Neither China nor Russia with its nuclear missiles are part of his plans. I think that Trump has simply once again become convinced that this terrorist needs to be dealt with. But what Trump will have to do in this case, and I think he will, of course, is to completely win Europe over to his side. That is this socialist Europe. In other words, to remove from it this overarching socialist entity called the European Union. To free the European countries and simply bring them in, not as the European Union anymore, but just as NATO. That is, practically every country will participate by allocating funds for defense. Trump challenged them with the 5%, and in this way, essentially strengthen Europe, and strengthen it with what else? By helping to remove the Starmers, the Macrons, the Merkels, these European socialists who, I think along with China, which has its own one belt, one road plans. We'll talk more about this issue later. So, I truly believe that Donald Trump will indeed take these significant steps that will undoubtedly strengthen the entire European continent, but this socialist framework needs to be removed. This will be seen as the collapse of the European Union, and in the end, each country will be able to choose a conservative leader. And Trump and his team of crusaders will definitely be able to influence this situation and ultimately revitalize Europe. But here, the main thing I believe in this situation will be Ukraine, because geopolitically, Ukraine is located in such a place that, on one side, there is Asia, and on the other, Europe. Ukraine is a large country, and in principle, if you change the leader there, put in a leader with a pro-libertarian, pro-conservative vision, and make them an ally, then this could definitely become a dominant force in the region. Because it would be an economic dominant, and this is clearly beneficial to the United States, since Europe will still have to deal with the situation of Islamization that has occurred over the last, especially 30 to 50 years. So I think that sanctions will still have to be imposed on Russia. And we said we were supporters of Trump imposing these sanctions right away. Slavik Yazhikov, hello, wishes you good health. Thank you for your position. Yes, please, Oleg, what's going on with Zelensky? It's unclear what's next. What do you think? But Trump is determined to remove Zelensky. I have no doubt about that, because he has no intention of upholding the economic agreement that exists between Ukraine and America. And in this regard, Zelensky is absolutely unsuitable for him. Therefore, I think there will be certain steps taken. But the first thing Trump needs to do is definitely stop the fighting. The fact that they are now demonstrating a great friendship with China, I am sure Trump still has many levers to influence Putin himself, to affect the situation inside Russia, to influence the situation within Europe, and in this way to pressure this KGB man and stop this bloodshed. And Trump, after all, hasn't really dealt with Russia in earnest yet. That is, he didn't impose sanctions. He didn't impose sanctions directly on Putin, on his entire inner circle, on all those people around him. He didn't, for example, completely stop the purchase of energy resources in Europe. I think he should put more pressure on Europe, and right now he's only just started the process where oil and gas production in America is increasing and developing and so on. That is, Trump will be able to compensate for this situation with America. Besides that, there's also Venezuela, with which negotiations are currently underway. I think within a month or two, the issue will be resolved, and this other terrorist regime in Venezuela under Maduro will fall. He has now been declared wanted with a $50 million reward, and eventually this country will be freed and will put in place. There is a pro-conservative politician, a woman, I forgot her name, but she's under repression and so on, and she won the election. She got 70% of the vote. Maduro simply rigged those elections. In fact, it was in Venezuela where this situation began, where they were the first to use machines, electronic voting machines, and then they used Dominion and another company, and later these were used in other countries as well. I am sure that now the year 2020 will definitely show that these were falsifications. You remember those graphs when Trump was winning in 2020, and then suddenly, in just 1 second, Biden's numbers shot up. It's absolutely clear, even from a mathematical point of view, that something like that can't happen. That's why Trump is now working at the legislative level to resolve the issue so that elections are held on a weekend, so that voting takes place in a single day, and that only paper ballots are used without these mail-in ballots, because as he says, that's pure manipulation. And in addition, you have to show ID to prove that you are a citizen of the United States of America. That's it. If Trump adds all these measures now, the leftists will have absolutely no chance of winning the election, none at all, not a single option. And at the moment, Trump has brought order to Washington, and you've heard all this information about Chicago, about the banditry. I think in a day or two, he'll send troops there as well. And Trump also stated one of the options is that there will be American troops in the country in the form of PMCs as private military companies. In my opinion, this is an absolute solution to the problem, because it will be possible to consolidate many private troops, many private companies that operate professionally, and in this way, it won't be a representation of the United States as such. It will be like how Putin used Wagner before, whom he eventually destroyed. You know what happened to him? And in that case, when it happened in Syria, Wagner took over a private company, which is considered, it was 100% the FSB. There was nothing private about it. He seized some oil rigs and a processing plant or something like that in Syria. And right away, Trump called Putin and said, "Aren't those your Russian soldiers?" Putin replied, "No, they're not mine." And with a single strike, Trump wiped out 300 people there. In other words, he doesn't stand on ceremony. He makes decisions very quickly. But his decisions always have to be grounded. He has to be sure of success. That's why he spent 2 months preparing the operation in Iran to bomb those sites where Iran was enriching uranium. Vitaly from Lutsk. Hello, Zakarpattia. Greetings to everyone. So will Trump not do anything further for Ukraine against Russia? Sergey, definitely. I've said it many times. Trump's direction doesn't change. He will still stop the war. Maybe he'll need to add some levers, and he will definitely do that. All this showmanship, all this hype in China right now about how China is strong, now India, now Russia. Believe me, all of that, this dinosaur is completely paper. It has a lot of internal problems too. And despite the fact that for so many years it stole technologies, used them for its own purposes, and paid nothing to America, all of that has now stopped. Now, technology here is going to take off while China is standing still. Yes, there is still some potential left, but I think that now, considering the current situation, the way America looks and its potential, well, China with its one-party communist system is not going to break through very far. It's abundantly clear that a truly free and democratic country like the United States of America, with its robust free market economy, fundamental human rights protections, and unwavering commitment to freedom of speech and expression, will most certainly and definitively emerge victorious. History has already proven this. History proved it when the Soviet Union collapsed. And communist regimes, they don't fall on their own. You can't even push them over, because at some point they collapse by themselves due to the fact that everything is built on lies, on dictatorship, on propaganda. That's why, without a doubt, the United States has prospects here. All the more so because clearly there will be elections in Brazil next year. Here too, I think there will be influence, the influence of the conservative wing. And here, Latin America will be cleansed of these leftists. Down south, Argentina. Argentina is very lucky, in my opinion. They have found Javier Milei, but such Javier Mileis should appear in every country. I'm sure such a white swan will appear in Ukraine as well. It's just that right now he is invisible because Trump and his team of crusaders haven't really focused on Ukraine yet in terms of the future leaders who will be in Ukraine. And, today President Trump is also meeting with the president of Poland, this Karol Nawrocki. He's a conservative. He's a patriot of Poland. Yes, sometimes he speaks out against Ukraine. But I'll tell you, all these historical issues can always be resolved if there is a pro-conservative wing, both in Ukraine and in Poland. I'm sure things will change there too. The wind is blowing in this direction. The wind is blowing toward common sense. So these historical issues can always be resolved. Because these issues arise when they are left unresolved, when it's beneficial for politicians to pit countries and peoples against each other. I'm sure that both the Chinese and the KGB agents, who have also infiltrated the United States, are always adding fuel to the fire of this conflict. Right now, a purge is underway. Here Oleg says, "Hello, Valentina Tishchenko. Hi, Snezhana. Oleg, after all, they sold long-range missiles. America has allowed the sale of weapons, and in a month or two, missiles will be in Ukraine. It's hard to even imagine what this could lead to." Believe me, even if Trump allows Ukraine to buy something or provides assistance, it will still be necessary, even after the cessation of hostilities in Ukraine, to have weapons for potential defense. Because with Putin nearby, even after things stop, you'll always have to stay alert so that he doesn't raise his head again. But I do not rule out that Trump, taking into account all these recent events with China, understands that from a moral standpoint and simply the right thing to do is to protect Ukraine's skies. That is, to close them and not allow Putin to bomb. And I think work is being done in this direction, especially now, since more than 50% of Republicans already support helping Ukraine. That is, they are on Ukraine's side, and moreover, Trump is determined to stop the war. So the processes are moving in the direction of stopping it. And after the war is stopped, according to what Trump is proposing, these private military companies, they could take control of the situation. And in this way, there would be no direct intervention by the United States or even, say, Europe. I think it will definitely go this way. And Trump's approach can be demonstrated. Here's some information from yesterday. He wrote that earlier this morning, by his order, the U.S. Armed Forces carried out a kinetic strike against the recognized narco-terrorists Darego in the Southcom area of responsibility. This is a designated foreign terrorist organization operating under the control of Nicolas Maduro, who is responsible for mass killings, drug trafficking, sex trafficking, as well as acts of violence and terror in the United States of America and in the Western Hemisphere. So it turns out that Trump is protecting not only America and Latin America, but the whole world. When the terrorists were at sea in international waters transporting illegal drugs, they were heading to the United States. As a result of the strike, as a result of the combat killing, 11 terrorists were killed, and in this operation, the troops suffered no casualties. Well, I mean, the United States of America. Let this serve as a warning to everyone, even those who are just thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America. Beware. Thank you for your attention to this matter, as Trump says. And just so everyone understands, that is, Trump acts tough. I'm sure he will act tough against both Putin and China as well. The only question is that preparation is needed. And that's exactly what America is doing right now. Right now, it's cleaning out these stables from within. The cleanup has already taken place in Washington. The next thing Trump needs to do is, of course, to put pressure on Powell and the Federal Reserve to lower the interest rate, because right now it's at 4.5%. If Trump manages to bring it down to at least 2%, the American economy will skyrocket instantly. That is, real progress toward improvement will begin here. And we must remember that there are also institutions that were established back in 1944 at the Bretton Woods Conference, where the IMF and the World Bank were created. Over the past decades, everything that has been done on their part should be viewed very critically. And the main influence there belongs to America. But we know that over the last 3 or 4 presidents, not counting Reagan, of course, America has practically been in a difficult situation the whole time. That is, socialists have been eating it away from the inside, along with the Peribists, Soros, and all that social riffraff. But today, it turns out that while Soros and the socialists were undermining things from within in Europe, China ended up taking dominance over them because China also expelled all those Soros-affiliated people and non-governmental organizations. In other words, it completely monopolized power there. And at the moment, there is even some kind of struggle going on between them. But both sides, no matter which, are definitely enemies of humanity. So Trump will immediately have to fight a fight with China. Of course, at the same time, there will also be a fight with the socialists of Europe.